tomorrow, so hopefully she can get out of the wheelchair. That's my hope. I know she's tired of using it. I'm tired of lifting it up against it. So.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's okay. It's cool.
Yes, sorry.
Ready? Take care. You ready?
No, I'm not. I have to talk to Mary.
Good evening and welcome, and a very humble welcome to our chambers council the Monday, October 3rd. It is crowded, and so there are a couple of things I want to ask you. It's like, please make sure that your cell phones are on silent. Also, if you do intend to want to speak at the very beginning in the hearing of visitors, do note that there are speaker slips in the back of the podium or up here right behind our police chief. And fill that out and actually hand it to our clerk at the appropriate time. All right, I want to go ahead and I call to order our meeting with the invocation and the pledge led by Councilwoman Bowers.
As we gather, we are reminded that despite our differences, we are linked by our common humanity. May we work together to move our community forward in a spirit of mutual respect and common decency. And in doing so, we showcase what is best about Gahanna, Ohio, and our nation. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Clerk, please call the roll.
Angelou.
Here.
Bowers.
here.
McGregor. Va.
Here.
Renner.
Here.
Schnetzer.
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
All right, thank you. Item B, additions or corrections to our agenda. Do we have anything? Okay, moving on to hearing of visitors. Now, we do have a lot of guests tonight. The first up, I would like to actually call my former boss, Marilyn Brown, who'd like to speak on the senior levy.
Thank you. I am Marilyn Brown, and I'm honored to be here tonight before you. I'm co-chair of the Senior Options Levy this year with Nana Watson, who's co-chairing with me. And this is a levy that comes up every 5 years. It's a renewal levy. It does not cost any more for a home if you're a homeowner than what you're paying currently, which for $100,000 home value, per home value, is $40.13. And for that, you receive house-giving care, you receive Meals on Wheels, a senior over 60, and there are at least 60,000 per year that receive these services. You receive caregiving help, you receive transportation help, and much more. So I'd be happy to answer questions. I have additional literature here if you want to have some. And I'd be honored to have your support.
Thank you. And what's the website if I want to go and learn some more?
The website is senioroptionslevy.com.
Thank you. Any questions?
It's just wonderful to see Marilyn here.
It is. It is. One of the most outstanding leaders of highest of ethics and service. And I thank you, Marilyn, for actually being here tonight and presenting this.
Thank you. And I appreciate all you do every day. As public officials, it's not easy, but it can be worthwhile. So I hope you're enjoying your service.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Next up, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. President.
First of all, this is, I believe, the crowd is most crowded that the Chambers has been since January of 2020. So this is actually phenomenal to see everybody here and to have you participate in local government. This is where it all begins. The proclamation that I have to deliver this evening is a little bittersweet. On one hand, it's an honor to be recognizing an individual who has been a part of the fabric of our community for more than 30 years and who has touched the lives of thousands of people in the community. At the same time, it is sad to say goodbye to an individual, that same individual who has decided to hang up his stethoscope and retire from the practice of medicine. Speaking of Dr. Dan Heinmiller, who's seated over here with his family, Dr. Dan has been a staple in the Gahanna community for more than 30 years. He founded Gahanna Pediatrics here in July of 1991, just a few years after he had been practicing up in Westerville and had completed his residency prior to that at Nationwide Children's Hospital. He estimates that during his 30-plus years in Gahanna, he probably treated over 20,000 children. And I know that my daughters, Sarah and Emily, were two of those children. And the saying used to go, when Sarah would come in, they'd say, batten down the hatches, Sarah Jadwin's coming in, because she would scream the minute he walked into the room. She was fine until he walked into the room. But she grew out of that eventually. And actually, through the years, I know he became a trusted confidant, a source of comfort for me when I would call when children are sick in the middle of the night. Certainly as a young parent, you never know what you're dealing with. But even for our daughters, as they grew up to become teenagers and even into their young 20s, he was a friend as well as a physician. So it's tough to say goodbye to Dr. Dan, but he has been so involved in the Gahanna community for so many years. If you've ever been to the St. Matthew's Festival, he was on the dunk tank. He was always willing to do that. I don't know why, but he did. Sponsoring Little League teams, helping with Dreams on Horseback, speaking to first graders about what it is to be a doctor, working with St. Vincent de Paul and feeding the poor. He truly has been invested in this community in every sense of the word. And it is my honor tonight to present him, Dr. Dan, if you'd come forward, please, with a proclamation. I'm not going to read this because I just kind of talked about everything that's in here, but I'll just read the last paragraph. That during his 4 decades of providing medical care, Dr. Dan has touched the lives of thousands of families and has served our community with compassion, integrity, and humility. His quick smile, I can't look at you, laugh, and caring heart will be greatly missed, and we extend our very best wishes for his continued success and much happiness in his well-deserved retirement. And today is officially now Dr. Dan Heinmiller Day in Gahanna.
Oh, thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Leroy. Appreciate that. No, I just wanted to say I'm humbled and honored. When I was trying to figure out where to start my own practice, I studied demographics. I studied a lot of different things, and I realized that Gahanna was a little underserved in the pediatric realm. And I'm so glad that I came here and started Gahanna Pediatrics by myself for 8 years, and then with Dr. Kern henceforth after that. But I tell you what, the people of Gahanna are. It's a wonderful community. It's integrated. There's a thread of hard work ethic, of civility, of helpfulness between everyone. And I am truly honored and humbled to accept this proclamation. I'm saying I'm retiring, but now my wife Kathy here, and I have to give her a lot of laud for putting up with me after these years, but she's not going to be totally retired because her main job is going to be taking care of me and making sure I don't get in trouble with people like my old St. Charles buddies in the back there. And and I wanted to thank my family for coming tonight and all their support over the years. They had to sacrifice when I was leaving the house at 5 a.m. to go see babies, or get called out of a Christmas recital in the driving snow to make a call to a frantic mother. But thank you very much, Lori, and I appreciate it. Gahanna City Attorney Ray Milarski, Police Chief Jeff Spence, all of council, and the whole city of Gahanna. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. It's one of the few times where we can actually say, is there a doctor in the house? And there actually is. All right, so we do have quite a number of speaker slips. What I'm going to do is I'll call your name and you come up to the podium. Per council rules, you are to state your name and your address. And we are packed, and so in the past, we might have been a little waxy-loosey about our rules of 3 minutes, but tonight, we're going to have to really keep you to those 3 minutes, okay? All right. I'm sorry.
Were we going to take the resolution out of order?
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Kendall, did you still want to do that?
Just keep it in.
Yeah. I apologize. I got ahead of myself a little bit. We do have a council resolution that Mr. Weaver would like to present.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I know it's slightly out of order here, but this is a resolution recognizing October 2022 as Arts and Humanities Month for the city of Gahanna. And on your agendas, this is under item F, Resolution 0031-2022. And essentially, this seems, the goal of this resolution, as I said, is to recognize the arts and humanities in the city of Gahanna and the wonderful opportunities that are available to our residents to partake in the arts and the humanities here in our very own city, such as the Gahanna Area Arts Council, along with Visit Gahanna and our wonderful Department of Parks and Recs, partnered to bring the Columbus Symphony just this last week to Sun Point Park for a wonderful, albeit windy, concert in the park with some wonderful music. And it just could not ask for a better performance and a wonderful turnout from the community. And Chief Operating Officer of the Columbus Symphony, Dan Walshaw, was going to join us this evening, but unfortunately, some sick kids at urgent care have kept him at bay. However, we do have Rebecca McBride-Smith from the Gahanna Area Arts Council here to accept the resolution on their behalf. So if you'll indulge me, colleagues. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Weaver. All right, now, without much further ado, we'll go to the stack of speaker slips. And again, just to reiterate, per council rules, when I call your name, come up to the podium, state your name and address, and you will get just 3 minutes. Okay, Nora Balon, and I apologize if I botch people's names. I really am sorry.
That's okay, because I'm going to state my name. Good evening. I'm Nora Boland. I live at 1333 Amberley Drive, West Gahanna. I'm opposed to the development and variances that Stone Ridge has presented and requested. Please recall from the 9/26/22 City Council meeting, the developer presented a visual in red of the MFRD properties already within the northeast quadrant of Gahanna. The northeast quadrant is inside Morse Road, Hamilton Road, Beecher Road, and Johnstown Road. What do you think of when you hear multifamily residential? I bet you think of apartments. But did you know that condominiums are considered multifamily? Let's review the developments within this quadrant. Morris Road, starting at the roundabout headed west, you have a commercial property, daycare. Story Point, which is assisted living. The 5503 Morris Road property, Sage Park, assisted living. A medical facility. Residents of Gahanna, which is an apartment complex. Cameron Ridge, an apartment complex. Village at Sterling Pines, which is a condominium community, an animal hospital, the Polo Club condominium community, and commercial. Hamilton Road headed south, you have a commercial, Shagbark condo community behind Giant Eagle, and more commercial. Beecher headed east, you have a medical park, commercial, and then the courtyard at Beecher Crossing, another condo community. Johnstown Road headed north, you have a funeral home, a daycare center, a medical facility, another daycare center, Gahanna Grove condo community, Rittenhouse Senior Living, Amberley Village condo community, houses, Windward Trace condo community, and houses. Let's review the areas that consist of Gahanna residents. The developer is requesting a rezoning from single-family estate to multifamily. The variance request is for 251 apartments. Why? Money. These small but many apartments scream a transient development and is smack dab up against Windward Trace and Amberley Village with its long-time, long-staying Gahanna residents. We own our condos and we pay our own taxes. The area in question is surrounded by condominium and medical buildings. The entire northeast quadrant in which the people live consists of 2 apartment complexes, 3 senior assisted living, and 7 beautifully established condo communities. Your argument may be for more housing, but look at the 43230 zip. As of yesterday, 35 apartment complexes were listed with available space. New apartments are being built at Morrison Road. Please do not approve the rezoning for this development, and should you, do not grant the 3 stories and the 251 units. Please make the development more consistent with the surroundings. This extremely high density is not a fit for the 13.96 acres at 5503 Morse Road. Remember, the red multifamily residential visual from 926 does not always mean apartments. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, Leo McCann.
Good evening. I'm Leo McCann, and I live at 1261 Amberlea Drive West, Gahanna. I'm also president of the Amberlea Village Condominium Association. I'm here tonight speaking in opposition to Ordinance 0056-2022, the Morse Road 14 project. One of the greatest concerns that I have in regards to the process of the reviewing of the zoning as well as the variance request is we have no visual drawings or renderings of what the proposed development is going to look like. So this, to me, is a ready, fire, aim type situation. 251 apartment units stacked in 3 stories. The sight lines are bad to Windward Trace and to Amberlea Village. And some of the speakers tonight are going to talk about how they have to live with this every day. Think about when you leave your house and you look at a 3-story building. Right there. We need to talk about what the development looks like before I think we can turn around and approve zoning changes and variances. I think this process is very backwards. We need to understand what we're looking at before we can make a decision on it. We pray for Windward Trace and Amberlea Village to get the artistic renderings and drawings and the actual site plan and development before it comes back to you, so we can take a look at what we're actually voting on. I think that would be appropriate. Thank you very much this evening for your consideration.
Ed Douglas?
I'm Edwin Douglas, and I live at 725 Windward Lane in Gahanna. Thank you for letting us present our concerns this evening. Some of the issues that I'll mention are ones that we brought up with the Planning Commission, but we wanted all city officials who are going to make these difficult decisions to be aware of our concerns. it looks like the goal is to have developers build apartment living on virtually every bit of available land. The argument seems to be that much more housing is needed in the metropolitan area. We must provide as much of it as possible. But is that a good goal? Must we satisfy all that need at the expense of residents who own and occupy private homes in the adjacent areas? Shouldn't those people be considered as well? You're being asked to overlook a number of changes to the rules and zoning rules that have been written by your very government officials. In the staff planning report, there's a list of nine variances that would be requested for the conditional use vacancy, conditional use. I want to bring up first number 7, which seems to me to be a really egregious one. The zoning code requires approximately a half a mile of lot, 2,640 feet, in order to develop 251 units. The lot being considered is just under 1,000 feet, not even half the required width. The first item was list the number of units to 8. You're being requested to expand that to 24 units per building. It's limited to 2 or more residential buildings on a lot being expanded, and that's you're being asked to expand that to 11 buildings. The density to acreage is 6 to 18 units per unit. This one is right at the limit. You're being asked to approve 17.96 units per acre. The rule calls for a maximum of 2 stories per building. You're being asked to raise that to 3. There's a reference to a flexible arrangement of buildings, and the ruling said that the variances are requested to some of the development standards of the MFRD, which I guess is multifamily residential, and zoning code. Variances are not spelled out. Accessory use buildings, request is for clubhouse, pool, garages, and so on. There doesn't seem to be a problem there. Number 8, zoning code prohibits no parking area closer than 25 feet to the front or rear of a building. The staff didn't understand why that code was implemented, so they recommended overruling it. And last, there's a zoning requirement a zoning certificate can only be granted within 1 year of conditional use approval. They're asking you to double that to 2 years. One of the things that struck me really odd was at the bottom
Mr.
of
Douglas,
I think it was actually under the
finish your thought.
top of page 4 of that staff report. It says that the land use portion of the report is that additional housing, specifically apartments, 90% of the city's housing stock was constructed prior to 2000, just 22 years ago. Housing opportunities need to evolve to match the preference of the market. Modern apartment projects typically have the amenities and features desired and lacking is in our existing stock. What that seems to me to imply is that if they become obsolete in 22 years, in 2044, will these be obsolete as well? And if so, what's likely to happen to the occupancy there? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Douglas. Mr. Jim McIntosh?
My name is Jim McIntosh. I live at 721 Windward Lane in Gahanna. I want to thank you for this opportunity to speak to council. I'm here to comment on the scores of beautiful trees on that property, on that 14-acre parcel in question, past, present, and future of those trees. We have looking down on us and commingling with us now birds, bats of all types, chickadees, titmouse, every order of finch, every species of hummingbird, many species of hummingbird, cardinal, blue jay, several species of raptor, and many others. Also commingling with us and finding refuge among the trees and the underbrush there are deer, buck, doe, and fawn, squirrels, chipmunks, foxes, and an occasional coyote, and maybe others. High-density development on the property will disperse this wildlife population, resulting in the preponderance of creatures then looking over to and down on their neighbors, us, to be people. As many as 500 people, maybe more. For those among us who think about what we can do to serve the betterment of our environment, I ask you to think about this as we're looking at and thinking about trees. I ask you to think about there is no other undeveloped green space of this size and this quality nearby. And think about this, the incalculable tons of carbon dioxide that the scores of trees consume, and the incalculable tons of oxygen that those trees create. Should any plan be improved, we would expect the developer to strategically plan and design the project to salvage as many of the property's trees as are practicable. I'm also here to comment on, if it were to be approved and if there were a development, how we would expect the developer to implement a consistent setback from the Morse Road property's southwest and east boundaries with its neighbors, us. We would expect a minimum setback from the property lines of 60 feet for all buildings, above ground infrastructure, roadways, driveways, automobile parking, standing water, and other property improvements. Having agreement with and assurance from the developer on this aspect of a prospective project's design and execution, and on other aspects as well, along with the sentiments on trees that I expressed a few moments before. That would all favor our confidence in having acceptable security and privacy, as well as limiting unwanted sound and light intrusions upon the peace we have enjoyed at our homes for many years and up until now. Again, thank you to the council for letting me speak before you and for your attention. Thank you. Dennis Huffman.
Hi. Name's Dennis Huffman, 737 Windward Lane, Gahanna, Ohio. I'm the president of Windward Trace Community, and I back up to the woods. We as a community are not happy with the Morris Road project, but one of our concerns is regarding fencing for security and privacy along the west and south perimeter of the property boundaries. That needs to be set back at least 55 feet. We want to see the builder install a 8-foot solid earth tone, low maintenance, durable vinyl with galvanized steel standards and cross members for support. So we have had 2 meetings with Stonehenge, and I think we're in agreement with the 8-foot vinyl fence. We have nothing in writing though, and we really haven't seen anything of what it's going to look like. Thanks.
Thank you. Douglas Knotts.
Thank you. My name's Douglas Knotts. I live at 785 Windward Lane, which is along the tree line that's being discussed tonight as part of the Morris Road zoning project. The point I'd like to make to the council, and I think the mayor already brought it up earlier, is the attendance tonight is a good reflection of how unpopular this zoning request is in the 2 developments it'll affect. I would like to also question whether the developer has gone through the process correctly or not. My wife contacted the Ohio EPA shortly after the meeting held in August with the Zoning Commission, At that point, the Ohio EPA had not received a request for mitigation on this property as being wetlands. Also, the Army Corps of Engineers needs to rule on the mitigation of this land as a wetland project. I'd like to know if the developer has proceeded. As of today, we called both the EPA, Ohio EPA, and we have a call in for the Army Corps of Engineers to confirm this has been done by the developer. I'd like to have this put forth to the council prior to a vote on this. And I strongly recommend, based on the unpopular projection by the people here, it's a good indication of how unpopular this project is, that you vote no if this comes before the council. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Mark Noraki?
Mayor, Mr. President, Council, thank you. My name is Mark Naraki. I'm at 1292 Amberley Drive East, and I am here to also speak in opposition to the development as I saw at the Planning Commission. I'll be one of the units that would kind of walk outside with a 3-story tall building kind of in my face. And that's kind of how I felt at the Planning Commission, seeing those plans for this piece of land. You know, the others spoke about the trees, about the wetlands, et cetera, but it seemed like that plan was just to push it as far as you can, as tall as you go. And, you know, I understand that last piece of land, you know, I don't own it. It's going to be developed, but it seemed like that plan was just an in-your-face, virtually everything that would not fit in with what already exists. And this may be the last piece of land that's there, so if you're last to the party, I think you need to work with and make it match and fit in with the other developments that are around. The density is an issue. We have a traffic circle that seems to work very well, and they're talking about putting in a light a few yards away, which kind of defeats the whole point of a traffic circle if you're going to put a traffic light on Morris Road and just jam that up. So that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Jeannie Hoffman.
Jeannie Hoffman, 708 Waybaugh Drive. I'm not nearly prepared as all these other speakers. I'm here to talk about the housing. I'm not clear on a couple things, so I just took notes. What's the issue we're actually trying to solve? I just went through the legislation and I just have notes on it. So under the source of income, I get all of the legal income. I'm a little bit not in favor of forcing a landlord to accept a voucher. I don't know how, I don't know, that's just my question, is that really okay to do? Is that really something local government should be doing, I guess is more my question. And are there unintended consequences to that? I took just like a random, I took some, back of the napkin math, as some people up there like to say. Took the subsidy and the income limit and 40% of that, and looked up rents, looked up just what would rent for under that amount. And I 4 apartments, I think the park would, I don't know, whatever they were, but one specifically said no Section 8. The others I called or emailed, and they do not accept Section 8. But I'm just thinking, is one of the unintended consequences of that going to maybe just, some of them only had to raise their rent maybe like $30, and then it would be unreachable for someone who is on a voucher or using a voucher for part of their rent. So the other things I had were real estate agents. I do appreciate that you've limited 10 people, 10 housing, whatever you call it, 10 housing units, but I'm not sure why real estate agents are in there, or real estate is in there. And it's if they sell in 10 houses in Gahanna, that would be like every real estate agent in the whole state could possibly be affected by that. I'm not really sure. That's just one of the questions, another one of the questions I had. The other one was about tendering rent. How would that be handled? Like once, and what if it's repetitive? Like if this person is not paying, they're never going to get caught up, but I don't know that this is really going to help either the landlord or the renter. So back to when I contacted those landlords, I didn't contact them, I just emailed them and asked if they accept Section 8. Has anyone called and talked to landlords and asked them, why don't you accept Section 8? There has to be a reason. If it's easy to get, it's easy to receive, you get your regular payments, why aren't more landlords accepting it? Maybe that's something we need to look into. And unintended consequences would be like raising their rent just a little bit, or like this new apartment that everybody is pretty against here. Are they still going to want to do it if they know that they're going to be forced to accept vouchers? And, sorry, I heard my beep. I have more questions, but, and is that just going to be a problem? I don't know. I have more questions, and I guess I'll email them to you. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, Maximilian Orsley.
Hey everyone, my name is Max Orsley, 691 Vivian Court. I'd just like to voice my support of the development, changing in zonings, because higher density means more efficient use of city resources, more accessibility to people, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Monica Morgan.
Hi, everybody. I'm back. I'm the owner, 14 acres. Ray, Mayor. So, 20 years down the road, I'm still being harassed and sued about my trees. Everybody loves the trees, but then I've had numerous suits over my trees. It's been very hard, difficult to make this decision to sell this property. I've went out of my way for 2 years trying to find a suitable buyer. I called EPCON. They didn't even want to talk about expanding. I want it to become beautiful, but I am worn out with trees, mowing grass, and the harassment from many people. It breaks my heart that I have to sell it because it was my grandmother's home place. But I just want everyone to know that these trees are going to be the death of me. I get registered letters, I get calls, suits about my trees. Ray knows this. It's hard. And I'm just one itty-bitty little person trying to do the best I can and make it beautiful. A new beautiful. So I understand everybody's hate of the 3 stories, but they also don't want my trees hanging over. I've had arborists come out. I've walked the property with Brian Reynolds, about my trees. It is constant. So please help me to zone this and make it a new beautiful, and maybe there's some trees that can be left that the Windward can be happy with. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for stepping up and talking about that. Thank you for everybody, but that is part of the narrative, isn't it? Property rights versus ownership rights. I don't think you can get any more American than that. One more speaker slip, Mary Dixon.
Mary Dixon, 847 Eastchester, Gahanna. I'm here to thank you for writing up the ordinance for the fair housing and the non-discrimination laws. I came before you a couple of times to ask for this, and I am more than grateful for all that's been put into this. I never imagined that you would do all of this. You listened, you acted, and I began talking with city officials and elected officials in January of 2021, and it's finally come to pass that it's this far. I think that I'm really impressed with the Fair Housing Board, with the housing non-discrimination laws, and the fairness to renters as well as landlords. There's a procedure that's outlined for non-compliance, which is also great. It's just, I think, a very good piece of legislation. And again, it's more than I expected, and it's very comprehensive. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, I don't have any more speaker slips. Are there any more?
That's all.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you for everybody's patience. That was long, but I definitely appreciate everybody's participation. Item D, presentation. We do have a presentation, another special guest, Ms. Shiloh Tordoff. She was a colleague with me in the Leadership Columbus program, class of 2014, so it's very nice to see you again. Best class ever. Yeah, best class ever. You're right.
Mr. President, thank you for the invitation to present tonight, as well as Council Members Bowers and Padova. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about Move to Prosper. Can you hear me? Right. Sure. Okay. So I just have about 7 or 8 minutes worth of slides, and I'm happy to take your questions, but I want to talk about this new approach to housing affordability and economic mobility that has just recently been piloted by Ohio State University, and we've just recently become our own standalone nonprofit as we've decided to grow. So Move to Prosper is, as it says on the screen, a 3-year program, and we empower families to really gain economic security. Over the course of the 3 years, what we do is help them out with rent, a partial rent support, as well as career and financial coaching. They set health and wellness goals. And we had a 10-family pilot that was run by the City and Regional Planning at the Knowlton School at Ohio State University that completed on July 31st. And just one takeaway, kind of the headline, I would say, from that pilot program is that we were able to help the families raise their incomes by 58% on average. So we feel pretty good about that. There were some other outcomes too that I will share with you as we go here, but that has prompted us to want to do this for more families. So I want to just tell you a little bit more about how it works. As I said, we were founded at Ohio State University. Steve Heiser is a local commercial realtor in Upper Arlington, and he was having a conversation with Amy Klaben, who many of you may recognize as having run Homeport, the largest affordable housing nonprofit in Central Ohio. She had just retired after 16 years as its CEO in 2016, and she and Steve were at a real estate meeting where they were talking about affordable housing. And Steve said, you know, I'm glad that we're bringing on more of these units. Certainly we need to have more of these sorts of units, but it takes a long time. Sometimes it can take 12 or 15 years for a project to go from start to finish. And what are we going to do about the children that are left in these low opportunity neighborhoods? We lose a generation every 18 years, right? There's got to be a different way to think about this. And so Amy started polling people, and she started with Dr. Rachel Cleet, whose specialty as a researcher, and she was at the time chair of the City and Regional Planning. She's since become Associate Dean of the Engineering Department. Rachel's background is not so much in the building of affordable units, but in the socioeconomic problems that can lead a family to need affordable housing in perpetuity. So she's really in kind of the social emotional side. So she and Amy started working together, and they brought in lots of experts from across the community, and they finally landed on the program that I will share with you in a little bit more detail. Here's the criteria for the population that we are looking to work with. On the right is kind of the basic black and white 4-person home, children under age 13, $25,000 to $51,000 based on the size of the family. That, if you speak area median income, if that sounds like English to you, that's 30 to 55% of area median income. And these are families that are not currently on a housing voucher. So we work with about 120 nonprofits in Central Ohio to help recruit these families, not only under the auspices of exactly what the right column says, but once they meet those criteria, we take recommendations and letters of support from these nonprofit agencies who can really say to us, this is a family that is ready for this kind of intensive program. They're ready to kind of set goals and accomplish them. So there are 4 components of the model. You've heard me touch on them just a little bit. Rent support in higher resourced communities, individual life coaching. So that's a one-on-one relationship. And during those one-on-one relationships, the families kind of work through the same set of goals. We call them our coaching pillars, as they do when they get together, all of them at once a month. They work on financial literacy, and they work on parenting skills, and they work on being a great partner with their child's school, and those sorts of things. And this is a 2-generation model. One of the reasons that we have our upper limit of the age for children set at 13 is because we're based on some national research out of Harvard, led by Raj Chetty, that showed just accessing higher resource zip codes alone for 3 years had this tremendous effect on children's outcomes, and they were even higher if they got there before they got to high school, right? So a really critical piece of the way that we're designed is looking at this national data. And then these are the pillars of the coaching and the monthly programs. First, our coaching starts before the families actually make the move, because if you think about, if you are currently in a neighborhood because that's the only place that you could afford the rent, thinking differently about what you want out of a neighborhood may not be something you had an opportunity to practice, right? So our coaching really starts with helping them define, okay, what do I need? Do I want to live near where I work? Do I need a special program out of a school and I need to shop by school district? Maybe I have a rambunctious 5-year-old and I really need a green space nearby, right? So we start helping them work through that, helping them put the budget together for a move and think about all the aspects that make moving stressful on all of us, right? Including getting ready to put your kid in a new school. And then housing stability. Many of these families have not had a positive relationship in the past with their landlords, so they really don't know what their tenant responsibilities and rights are, so that's a piece of our coaching as well. Financial capability, of course, education and career, setting your own career goals, and then really kind of breaking those into bite-sized pieces that you get to work on over the course of the program. And then health and wellness goals. That might be anything from using yoga for stress relief to cooking on a budget. So we get 36 months with these families, and we have a copyrighted curriculum, and we just work our way through these kinds of very bespoke goals. So this is kind of a cool map that shows a couple of different things about those pilot families. One on the right is kind of the map that defines what I'm talking about as it relates to higher resource neighborhoods. That's a map that the Kirwan Institute at OSU creates every 2 years for the Ohio Housing Finance Agency when they're thinking about where they're going to do sort of tax credits. They're trying to figure out where these opportunity zones are, right? Well, we look at the other part of the map, and we're trying to put kids in the moderate, high, and very high neighborhoods and zip codes of Central Ohio. So our landlord partners, and there are 11 of them today, that's where we're looking for them, in the deep wine and red and orange colored pieces of that map. The other cool thing that this shows you, if you can focus on those little bitty numbers, 8 is kind of easy to see over on the west side, right? 8, that is one family moving from, West Franklinton or the Hilltop out to Hilliard. And just in making that, about 7 zip code jump, like that might still be using the same grocery store and the same interstate exits, certainly your same hairdresser, right? But the opportunity is like 40 points different on a 100-point scale. It's just a totally different part of our region, right? And so this kind of displays what we're trying to do. And then what you see on the left is the demographics of those pilot families. Okay. I'm a fine spokesperson for this, but let's hear from one of the families. Uh-oh, we don't have any sound. You think it's coming, or should I move on?
You may need to move on.
Okay.
Looked good, though.
It's so disappointing because Bessie, she wanted me to very proudly tell you tonight, is in love with Gahanna, Ohio. She cannot say enough good things about becoming a member of your community. She talks about using the bike trails and being able to walk to her grocery store when her car was kind of faulty at the beginning of the program. The story that Bessie tells with the most pride and the most passion is about the day after she had gone in to kind of meet with the principal in that pre-coaching period and kind of help understand, okay, who are my sons? What do they kind of need? What has our experience been at other schools? And on the first day of class, she talks about how the principal, I don't know if it's a man or a woman, but the principal met them at the curb and said, "Welcome to our school. We're in this together. You're part of our family now." So she had a son that was finally diagnosed correctly, got on the right got the right supports, and then was able to get up to grade level in both math and reading within just 1 year of joining that community. So that is Bessie, and she is a very proud resident. Now, I don't know if I have the ability to move that on by myself. All right. So this, as I said at the top, is kind of the headline, right? 58% higher income, or $17,000 on average from when they entered the program, which meant that on July 31st, 100% of our families were able to take on the rent by themselves. We give $400 a month, which means you need to make at least $5,000 more than when you entered the program just in order to pick up your rent, but they have blown that goal out of the water, and this is part of the reason that we are going to expand. Now, interesting thing about this, Bessie came into the program as a home health aide. That's about a $12.09 an hour average job in Ohio. Her outcome is not in that 58%. She didn't get her commercial driver's license until May, when she very proudly sent us this picture of herself completing her training. And that, on average, pays $72,000 in Ohio. So I think as we continue to track these families alongside our evaluation team at Ohio State, we'll continue to see really good things happening for them. And here's another result. We didn't go in trying to do public health research, but what we learned from the moms is that their trips to the emergency room, particularly for asthma and other upper respiratory problems, had fallen from 14 one year to 1 in the first year of the program. I mean, we can point to a number of things about that, right? Lower income neighborhoods tend to be the places where factories are. And these moms were having they were terrified to allow their children to play outside. So now the kids not only are not getting fresh air, but they're often in homes that are not safe and healthy, maybe with mold and that sort of thing. So this is another outcome that has attracted Humana's support as we go forward. And then I talked a little bit about that last block here, but neighborhood resources on that map of kind of 18 indicators of resource that Kerwin puts together. Coming into the program is the yellow line in each of these cases, so neighborhood resources jumped by 44%. The high school graduation rate jumped by 17%. If you just think about going to class with peers that think they're gonna graduate from high school, that's entirely different than going to school with peers who think they probably won't, right? And the school ranking, that's a little bit confusing because it's a 10-point scale instead of a 100-point scale. But that means that 4% increase is a 40% jump in their great schools ranking from previous neighborhood to current neighborhood. So here we are in the expansion campaign, and we just welcomed our first 16 families. We're going to do this in 16 family cohorts. The idea is to do this for 2 cohorts per year over the next 3 years, unless we find out that we can go faster than that, right? And the real key, of course, in addition to it being about $6,200 per person per year, so a cohort of 16 for the entire 3 years is about $890,000, but is the opportunity to partner with more and more landlords, right? And we currently have 11 landlord partners. There they are. In 15, in fact, this changed over the weekend. Now we have 13 landlord partners and 17 neighborhoods in which we can offer apartments. And what our landlords are essentially doing is helping us create stealth affordable housing. This turns into just a unit in a apartment building, and it's any Andler family moving in and going to a new school, right? So we are constantly looking to expand our landlord partners as well. And so these are the ways as people may be interested in how we're going to do this. And if they're interested, this is how to help. We're having an event to get to know us better on December 1st. We have volunteer opportunities. And again, we are looking for a bigger pool of landlords. So with that, I'll thank you for your time and attention. There's how to get a hold of me. Other questions?
Thank you very much. Any questions? Any comments? Ms. Padova.
I just want to thank you so much for being here tonight, because the work you're doing is incredible. We always hear this teach someone how to fish analogy, but we never talk about the access to fishing poles, and this is exactly what you're doing, and this is just excellent. Thank you so much. I was so happy to hear that we have families here in Gahanna, and I wish we could have heard Bessie, because she looked so happy and thrilled to talk about Gahanna.
I'll put it in your inbox when I
Yeah.
get home. Yeah.
Please do. Please pass that on to us. Thank you.
Okay. Perhaps we can actually put that YouTube video on our website or something like that, especially
Great.
since it's a Gahanna citizen. It's a story that we really want to get out there, so thank you.
I'd appreciate
So tell me a little bit more, where's the event? How do I get more involved?
Oh, thank you for that question, Mr. President. We are going to have a little snacks, a little wine, and a little program on December 1st. That's a Thursday from 5:30 to 7 at The Point at Polaris, 8900 Lyra Drive. And the cool thing will be that not only at the podium, but in the room, a number of our pilot families and our new families will be there, because they really appreciate the opportunity to share their story and continue to be our ambassadors.
What time is that event?
5:30 to 7 p.m.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Item E, consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as published?
So moved.
Have a first by Ms. Bowers. Do I have a second? Second by Angelou. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Bowers?
Yes.
Angelou?
Yes.
McGregor?
Yes.
Padova?
Yes.
Renner?
Yes.
Schnetzer?
Yes.
Weaver?
Yes.
Okay, item F, resolutions. We do have the resolution that Mr. Weaver presented, Resolution 31, 2022, a resolution recognizing October 2022 as Arts and Humanities Month for the city of Gahanna. Do I have a first?
Motion to adopt.
A first by Mr. Weaver. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Ms. Angelou. Any discussion? Jeremy, please call a roll.
Weaver?
Yes.
Angelou?
Yes.
McGregor?
Yes.
Padova?
Yes.
Renner?
Yes.
Schnetzer?
Yes.
Bowers?
Yes.
Resolution passes. Good thing since we presented it. Okay, item G, ordinances for introduction and first reading. We are not taking any legislative action. This is just for first reading, and I'm going to read them just for them to be in the record. Ordinance 56 2022, an ordinance to amend the official zoning map of the city of Gahanna adopted by Ordinance 198-96 on November 19th, 1996, and subsequently amended, changing the zoning district of 13.96 plus or minus acre parcel located at 5503 Moores Road, parcel ID 025-011219, from estate residential-1 ER1 to multifamily residential MFRD project Moores Road 14, Scott Harper applicant. This will come back to Committee of the Whole, and please remember that there is a public hearing on this item for the zoning change on October 17th. Also for first reading is Ordinance 61-2022, an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances of the City of Gahanna, enacting chapters 790, 791, and 792 to create a fair housing board, to establish housing non-discrimination laws, and to codify an affirmative defense to eviction commonly referred to as pay to stay. This will also be in Committee of the Whole for more discussion. Item H, ordinances for second reading and emergency adoption. These are ordinances that we are taking legislative action tonight. Ordinance 59-2022, an ordinance to amend Ordinance 89-2021, an ordinance establishing the salaries for personnel of the City of Gahanna for the period January 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2022, and to declare an emergency. Do I have a first for this ordinance?
So moved, Mr. President.
Have a first by Mr. Snetzer. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Ms. Padova. Any discussion? Okay, Jeremy, please call the roll.
Schnetzer?
Yes.
Padova?
Yes.
Renner?
Yes.
Weaver?
Yes.
Angelou?
Yes.
Bowers?
Yes.
McGregor?
Yes.
Thank you. Ordinance passes. The second ordinance, 60-2022, an ordinance to amend Ordinance 91-2021, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to sign and adopt the pay administration policy effective January 1st, 2022, and declare an emergency. Do I have a motion to adopt?
So moved, Mr. President.
I have a first by Mr. Snutzer. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Ms. Padova. Any discussion?
Yeah, I'll comment.
Ms. Bowers, please.
First, I just wanted to thank Director Vollmer. I know that we had asked for this to come onto the agenda pretty quickly, and you and your team in finance were able to pull that together so that we did not have to do this with waiver, and I do appreciate that. And on behalf of the citizens of Gahanna, who I know would rather not see things with waiver and emergency and make sure they get full first reading and second reading. So thank you to the administration for doing that. I also just wanted to mention that I appreciate that we're doing our best to attract and retain our city employees, especially in a difficult period. I think that this is important and necessary in order for us to continue to fully staff so that we can provide city services at the level at which our residents deserve and should expect. I also wanted to mention that I attended the Columbus Metropolitan Club's forum that last Wednesday on the State of the Workforce report. And one of the things that was discussed by the Chief Talent Officer from Huntington National Bank was addressing, in addition to compensation, things that do keep a happy and healthy workforce, such as benefits that we might not always think of, which I know that our Director of Administrative Services works on, but also that value alignment is critical to employees today. And I think that people who work, specifically people who choose to work in the public sector, have a calling, and I want to recognize that and thank all of our employees for continuing to seek to improve our values along with us. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions, or comments, discussion? All right, Jeremy, please call the roll.
Schnetzer?
Yes.
Padova?
Yes.
Renner?
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Angelo,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
McGregor.
Yes.
Ordinance passes. Thank you. Congratulations, Mayor and staff. Correspondence and actions. Mr. Clerk, do we have anything? Do you have anything for us
Nothing
tonight?
this evening, Mr. President.
Thank you. Council colleagues, do we have anything? Okay, representatives, Community Improvement Corporation. I do have a report, short report. We did meet on September 20th. CIC met on Tuesday, September 20th in the committee rooms. President Collins called the meeting to order at 8 a.m. sharp, and she does that. CIC financial statements show that it ended the month of August with a little bit more than $976,000 in cash and about $3.5 million in total assets, an equivalent amount in liabilities and equity. The mayor provided CIC updates on new businesses, she does to council, such as the CAPS business and in progress on 825 Tech Center Drive, the new City Hall establishment. Committee reports have nothing new to report. That's a silly statement. Real Estate Committee asked for CIC to go into executive session at 8:13 a.m. and came out at 9:02. Executive Committee authorized the Director Strom to continue negotiating with Heartland Bank to provide future financing for acquisition of properties with terms and totals to be determined later. Next meeting is October 18th and will be at 7:30 in the morning due to some schedule conflicts, and it'll be in our committee rooms again. Well, we adjourned at 9:04 a.m. Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission. Ms. Angelou.
Thank you, sir. The Planning Commission Executive Committee meeting is this coming Thursday, and the commission meeting for the commission will be 1 week from that. That's all I have.
Thank you. Convention and Visitors Bureau, Ms. Bedova.
The CVB is encouraging people to enter a decorated pumpkin for the Creekside Pumpkin Crawl taking place on Wednesday, October 26th from 5:30 to 7:30. Those who attend will vote on their favorites, and the winners will be awarded in various categories. You can sign up to enter a pumpkin on visitgahanna.com. And the Ohio Herb Center is offering a variety of classes this month, including Ghost of Gahanna, Sacred Smoke, Herbal Beauty, Natural Hair Care, and Nature Photography with your DSLR camera, a beginner's course. So you can go to Visit Gahanna to sign up for those as well.
Thank you. Number 4, School Board, Ms. Bowers.
I have nothing to report tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Item K, Official Reports, Madam Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Just a few things, and I will keep this as brief as possible. First of all, Cherry Bottom Road construction work. As council is aware, we have identified roadway maintenance work that is necessary for Cherry Bottom Road. And in order to preserve the integrity of the roadway, we received $200,000 in grant funds from OPWC toward that project, which is expected to be $1 million to $1.2 million. Council just recently approved that project, and we were advised late last week that that construction is going to begin pretty soon so that they can get that done before the winter months. The construction work will be in 2 phases. The first phase will be the northern section of Cherry Bottom Road. There will be a road closure. All of Cherry Bottom Road will be closed just south of the entrance to Academy Park to just north of the entrance to Columbus Academy. That closure is scheduled to begin October 17th and to last 14 days. So October 17th to October 31st would be the closure of Cherry Bottom Road for work on that northern section. Once that work is complete and that roadway reopens, we will then switch to the southern portion of Cherry Bottom, much smaller section, but again, full road closure, which would be just north of the main entrance to Stony Brook Church and just south of Springbrook Drive. But you would not be able to travel all the way up and down Cherry Bottom Road from Morris down to 62. You'll have to take detours. So message boards are up. We finalized a graphic today that will be going up showing detours. Again, the 2 construction projects are in 2-week segments, back to back. So it's going to be about a 1-month period where there's going to be some detours. They'll get the work done as quickly as possible. We appreciate everybody's patience in advance, but we obviously it's critical work that needs to be done in order to preserve that roadway. We'll be posting updates on social media and on the website. Something's going out in the city newsletter this week, and we'll also be sending letters out through the homeowners associations in that area so that they can then send them to the residents. That's the most effective way to get that word out. But if you receive any questions, please direct them to the Department of Engineering about if there's questions about the construction work, et cetera. Second, speaking of a big roadway project, not great timing, but some of you, and in fact most of you, I believe already know that our Director of Public Service, Grant Crawford, will be leaving us. He has taken a position with the City of Powell to be the Director of Public Service there. Grant's last day with us will be Thursday of this week. We have been downloading everything we can from his brain. He's been here for 15 years and literally grew up in the sewers of Gahanna, as I like to say. He started as a part-time, actually a seasonal employee, I think flushing fire hydrants, I'm not sure, but he pretty much knows everything there is to know about the sewers in Gahanna, and we're going to miss him. This is a tremendous opportunity for him as well to continue to grow in his role. So bittersweet again as well. But I appointed Grant as Director of Public Service my first month in office, and I came to really rely on his knowledge. I appreciated his hard work, and as well as his sense of humor, because not every Director of Public Service would climb into a trash can to promote new trash cans that were being distributed. But that does remain our highest viewed video, by the way, of the last 2.5 years. On another note, I'm excited to announce that Jim Turner, you might remember Jim Turner, who worked here as our water resource engineer, left here to go in-house with a private company back in early January. Jim is rejoining us, thanks to the salary ordinance in large part. Jim will be is returning as a senior civil engineer, be working with our Director of Engineering, Tom Comlank. His first day back here officially as a City of Gahanna employee will be October 17th. He's currently working for us as a consultant to kind of help with some of the water resource engineer work that we have to do, but we are thrilled to welcome Jim back. If you did not have an opportunity to connect with him earlier, he's extremely knowledgeable and experienced, and we are just really thrilled to have an employee of his caliber joining our team once again. Speaking of the salary ordinance, I want to thank Council for your vote this evening. Over the last 4 years, our Department of Human Resources has been working to ensure the city's compensation program for the unclassified personnel to make sure that's competitive and equitable. The passage of this final phase that you just voted on will ensure that pay is competitive in the Central Ohio market for future employees. Certainly the local government sector has been one of the hardest hit by the Great Resignation. Gahanna and our peer communities are all feeling that. I think this will be a huge step forward as well for our recruitment of employees, but it's also important for our current employees. The compensation program demonstrates the city's commitment to retaining the talent that we have here and ensuring that pay in the future is equitable. It takes a lot of resources, staff time, finances, to advertise, recruit, hire, train employees, only to then see us lose them to a municipality who can offer them more money and less work hours. I think this is a huge step forward for our employees. We have an incredible, incredible team of dedicated individuals who come to work here every day to serve our residents and our business community, and we want to keep them here. They're all great people. They're neighbors. They're friends. They live right here in Gahanna. Most of them do, and they take great pride in their work. So thank you for showing that you value them as well. Finally, October is National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. During this time especially, we think about victims of this horrific crime and many individuals and organizations that work every day to prevent it. Gahanna has been impacted by domestic violence from the Judy Malinowski's very devastating situation, which started back in 2015, which she succumbed to to the injuries she suffered in 2017, to just a recent event that we had in the past year. With a terrible incident off of Morse Road in one of our neighborhoods. It's something that happens everywhere in every community. Later this month, there will be a documentary that's going to be released on Judy Malinowski's story. It details the bravery that she showed, discusses all of the efforts of her loved ones and investigators to hold her murderer accountable. So our thoughts continue to be with her family and the families, members of all victims of domestic violence as they continue their lifelong journey to heal and to deal with the impact of that crime. We do want to throughout the month of October, we will continue to send awareness of domestic violence through our community with posts. If you know someone who is showing signs of being in a situation that's difficult like that, the best thing you can do is to help them reach out. They can call our Gahanna Division of Police, 342-4240, or obviously dial 911. There also is a national domestic violence hotline, which we'll be sharing, again, on social media and on websites. Tragic events like that, people need other friends to be strong and to stand up for them. And if you see something, say something, but say something to the person that you can help the most. So thank you for that. Appreciate the time.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. City Attorney.
Thank you. I would like to say that Grant Crawford has taught me more about sewers than I ever wanted to know. Being an attorney, I've often been compared to having crawled out of sewers, but now I know a lot more about it than when I first came in here, and he will be missed. I do want to apologize for me having stepped out a little bit earlier, but Dr. Dan was not only my son's pediatrician, but he's one of my best friends, and he personifies what it is to be a good soul. I just hope that when I step into my next phase, that people think of me as highly as they think of him, and that's all.
Thank you. Item L, council comment. Ms. Angelou.
Well, I would like to say the Summit on Sustainability, which is with MORPC, and I think most of us are going to this, will be a week from this Friday, and looking forward to it. Our mayor is part of that particular group that does the Summit on Sustainability, so we will have a wonderful day with that. We're so fortunate to not be in Florida, aren't we? And when I think about, I was watching that over and over and over again, I kept seeing that it was coming to Columbus, Ohio. And I thought Columbus, Ohio now means Gahanna as well. And it was so fortunate that it did not really show up this way, although we've had some wind. So we certainly should be praying to our Lord and Savior that not many people, more people have the problem of putting our families into a different place. So with that, I will say that's all I have.
Thank you. Ms. McGregor.
I appreciate the mayor honoring Dr. Dan tonight. My about 8 of my grandchildren go to that practice, although they saw Dr. Kern, who was his partner. But one time I had to take one of them into, and Dr. Kern was gone, so I had to see Dr. Heinmiller. And this child was one of 4 in a family, and he had strep. And so Dr. Dan looked down, he says, he says, I'm going to write you 3 more scripts for penicillin or whatever the antibiotic was. And he said, because it's likely if this one has it, the other ones will too. He said, if you don't have to use it, don't worry about it. And I thought that was such a practical thing rather than having to traipse in with the other 3 kids, because if they all get sick, you know they probably all have the same thing. So I always really appreciated that practicality of the doctors at that practice. And I am sure that he is going to be really missed. And that's all.
Thank you. Mr. Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. President. Want to echo my colleagues in offering my congratulations to Dr. Dan and the entire Heinmiller family. The Heinmillers are quite the large family and are in various neighborhoods throughout the community. And if I get this right, Dr. Dan's sister-in-law taught for many years at Middle School East, and I had her for 7th grade English, and we remained close since. Just a very kind, loving, and generous family. So kudos to Dr. Dan on his retirement. I do want to thank everyone for coming out this evening and for offering your thoughts. They are appreciated, and I say this every time when we have hearing of visitors. My colleagues and I deeply value your comments, so thank you. And I also want to thank Director Todorov for being here with Move to Prosper and for the wonderful presentation. Just incredible work that they're doing. And then lastly, I just want to encourage everyone to participate or tune in to the public hearing on October 17th on the proposed rezoning. Continue to reach out in the interim. Please, I'm sure, I don't want to speak for the developers, but continue reaching out to the developers as well with questions, comments, and concerns. And I think that's it for me, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Badova?
Thank you. Thank you to all of the speakers this evening. As my colleagues have said, it's always nice to hear from residents here in Chambers. And I also want to echo President Renner's thoughts to thank Ms. Morgan for coming last week as well as speaking up this evening. I'm sure you've had a lot of struggles with decisions both to sell and speak up during these meetings. So on another note, I'd like to share a poem in light of the devastation we've seen in Florida over the last week. This poem is by Amanda Gorman, and it was first read to the UN General Assembly on September 18th. It's titled An Ode We Owe. How can I ask you to do good when we've barely withstood our greatest threats yet? The depths of death, despair, and disparity, atrocities across cities, towns, and countries, lives lost, climactic costs, exhausted, angered, we are endangered. Not because of our numbers, but because of our numbness. We're strangers to one another's perils and pain, unaware that the welfare of the public and the planet share the same name. Equality doesn't mean being the exact same, but enacting a vast aim. The good of the world to its highest capability. The wise believe that our people without power leaves our planet without possibility. Therefore, though poverty is a poor existence, complicity is a poorer excuse. We must go the distance. Though this battle is hard and huge, though this fight we did not choose, for preserving the earth isn't a battle too large to win, but a blessing too large to lose. This is the most pressing truth, that our people have only one planet to call home, and our planet has only one people to call its own. We can either divide and be conquered by the few, or we can decide to conquer the future and say that today a new dawn we wrote. Say that as long as we have humanity, we will forever have hope. Together, we won't just be the generation that tries, but the generation that triumphs. Let us see a legacy where tomorrow is not driven by the human condition, but by our human conviction. And while hope alone can't save us now, with it we can brave the now, because our hardest change hinges on our darkest challenges. Thus may our crisis be our cry, our crossroad. The oldest ode we owe each other, we chime it for the climate, for our communities. We shall respect and protect every part of this planet, hand it to every heart on this earth until no one's worth is rendered by the race, gender, class, or identity they were born. This morn, let it be sworn that we are one human kin, grounded not just by the griefs we bear, but the good we begin. To anyone out there, I only ask that you care before it's too late, that you live aware and awake, that you lead with love in our hours of hate. I challenge you to heed this call. I dare you to shape our fate. Above all, I dare you to do good so that the world might be great. That's all from me.
Wow. Thank you. Mr. Schnitzer.
Thank you, Mr. President. A product of going towards the end here, as this may sound a bit redundant, but obviously wanted to thank everybody that stepped up to the podium today on a variety of issues. I know it takes a bit of courage to stand up there. Applaud you all. Your participation is vital to our local form of government here. And then I guess we'll all light a candle and say a prayer that we have good weather for the month of October with Cherry Bottom Road being under construction essentially the entire time. And no delays? Fingers crossed?
Fingers crossed.
Okay.
Light a candle.
That's all for me, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bowers.
Yes, thank you, Council President. I wanted to first extend my gratitude to Shiloh Todorov from Move to Prosper for her presentation to Council tonight. I think Councilwoman Padova, I really liked the analogy to the fishing pole, and I'm really glad and proud that Gahanna is a destination community for those who are seeking to improve their lives and the lives of their children. I know I've sat up here for about 3 years and heard Councilwoman Angelou talk about how Gahanna is such a great place to be, and I couldn't agree anymore. And it's wonderful to see that other families recognize the same great opportunity that I saw 10 years ago. Thank you to all the residents who came and spoke tonight as well. Ms. Hoffman, you know I will be happy to respond. Please stay tuned. The issue of the Fair Housing Ordinance will be back in front of Council for committee discussion next week on the 10th. And we will be hearing from Amy Klaben, who you heard is involved with Move to Prosper, but she will be speaking more specifically on building welcoming communities. And we should have more information to share regarding some of the remaining questions. So I do appreciate those questions, Ms. Hoffman. I wanted to also, I wanted to bring up on September 22nd, just about a week and a half ago, State Representative Mary Lightbody hosted a meeting between local public officials and Intel, hosted at New Albany High School. I was able to attend. Mayor Jadwin was also in attendance. We heard from two folks from Intel, Kevin Hoggett, who's the Director of State Government Affairs for Ohio. He has joined Intel from Rob Portman's office, Senator Rob Portman's office, so he has a lot of insight into state issues and public opinions and the issues going on here. We also heard from Emily Smith, who is Intel's Director of Public Affairs and Sustainability, specifically for Ohio. She has a fascinating background. I think she both had experience in fine arts and dance, but also had a hard science background, and I think had a BS, was in her undergraduate. They talked to us about everything kind of from what semiconductors are to what the facility is and what an incredibly, what a hyper clean environment the facility will be in order to produce the semiconductors. They also talked about their commitments to the region and globally and their corporate values. So I thought it was a really interesting presentation from Intel. Jennifer Chrysler, the Director of Development in New Albany, also presented with information about infrastructure, the location specifically, roadway improvement plans and highway improvements that are going to be happening. She specifically referenced 161 getting some improvements and some expansion at certain critical points along the way. She pointed us to newalbanysiliconheartland.com. If you wanted to follow up on additional information, that was newalbanysiliconheartland.com. We also heard from Joe Garrity from MORPC on what this means for the region. Ashley Saveo of AEP talked about transformer and power grid improvements to the area. And County Engineer Cornell Robertson also spoke a little bit about some additional lower roadway improvements that have been going on kind of throughout the region. Overall, it was a really informative meeting, and I think more importantly, it kind of got everybody in the room so that we could meet each other and find out maybe who some point people are, especially as we start to see groundbreaking on this important project. I will just conclude by thanking Mr. Weaver on bringing forward the resolution for National Arts and Humanities Month and extend my gratitude to the all volunteer board of the Gahanna Area Arts Council. I am grateful for all the events that Arts Council has put on, and it was amazing to see that this was just the second event in partnership with the Columbus Symphony Orchestra, and how much it grew from a pandemic in-car event to a post-pandemic at the park in lawn chairs event. It was truly wonderful and really embodied the types of things that high opportunity communities are able to provide to residents. And so thank you to Arts Council, Visit Gahanna, and the Department of Parks and Rec for presenting that event. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to actually remark again, I want to thank everybody that took the time to fill out the speaker slip and actually even it is a little bit of bravery and courage to actually stand up to a microphone and actually talk in front of a bunch of people that you don't know. And part of that is actually being a participant in government. And that is one of my biggest things that I'm passionate about. And so thank you. You are standing up, you're talking, and hopefully you're reaching out to the developer. But also remember that part of the narrative is also somebody owns the property, somebody wants to dispose. Constitutionally, they have rights to that property. So how do we navigate that? You're doing that, you're learning. And then the next thing is to actually take a deeper look at to what is the government process. Right now, it's just a zoning question. Do we want to do it, yes or no? But the design, the building, and all that kind of stuff comes much later, and it's a planning commission process. But we can talk about all of this. Any of us up here on the dais, the mayor or even the city attorney would be more than happy to actually help you understand what the process is. But I definitely want to thank you for actually being a part of this great American experiment. And also, I want to also echo what Councilman Schnetzer talked about. We have a lot of road and we have inclement weather. It looks like the fall is probably going to be a little bit colder, and we might have precipitation that's not really enjoyed in the state of Ohio, which is weird because we used to have lots of it in the state of Ohio. But we all definitely, in tandem with participating and, pardon me, defending our property rights or talking about government, traffic, we need to take a deep breath, all of it. Just take a deep breath, move slower, understand things, and we'll all get to the same destination. I think you heard very well this fantastic poem that my colleague, Councilwoman Padova, read. Got me a little choked up at the end, and I had to go search for it because I wanted to make sure. Those last two lines, above all, I dare you to do good so that the world may be great. Amen to that. Thank you and have a good night. We do have an executive session. There is no legislative action coming out of that. But our next item, executive session, to go into executive session under authority of section 5.40A of the Council Rules of Procedure to consider the appointment of public employees or officials. Do I have a motion to go in executive session?
So moved.
Have a first by Mr. Weaver and a second by Mr. Schnetzer. Any discussion? Jeremy, please call the roll.
Weaver.
Yes.
Schnetzer.
Yes.
Angelou.
Yes.
Bowers.
Yes.
McGregor.
Yes.
Padova.
Yes.
Renner.
Yes. Thank you.
Law library or back there?
Oh, crap. Law library. Yep.
Just us?
Just us. Just us.